Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, and we're coming to you from the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island because that's where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce has their annual policy conference. And who would know more about policy and policy setting than Quentin Messer, my good friend and head of the MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation? Always good to have you. Always good to spend time with you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
You are incredibly dapper. Is there a
Um,
party I didn't get invited to? Again?
you are invited to every part. We can't have a party without you.
Yeah.
First of all,
Hey, well, you got to have a crasher at every party.
well, so, but no, I'm always grateful for what you and your team do, affording us this opportunity, and thank you for your continued coverage of
Well,
this.
listen, you guys do a great job. You
That's
do.
very kind of you.
And you help the business community. That's what we're all about. You know what I mean? So,
Well, we're trying to get better every day. You're a big sports person. I know that we're big fans of Coach Izzo, and the adage of getting 1% better every day
yeah.
and really understanding what we need to do. And this affords us an opportunity to listen to businesses, academia, the philanthropic sector, as well as elected officials, understand what do we need to do to make sure that Michigan is attractive for not only investment capital, but making sure that young people, people of all ages, want to continue to vote with their feet, move to Michigan, and build their economic lives here.
Yeah. And of course, one of our big challenges for the last probably 4 years has been this talent issue.
Hmm.
And it's becoming less of a problem, but it's still a problem.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we are improving the number of people who are saying that, hey, I'm willing and able to work in the workforce. But we still know that there's a displacement in the sense that you have companies who are seeking employees and you have employees seeking opportunities. There's a mismatch there.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we're doing, not only just at MEDC, but across all of government, working with our sister agencies, Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, even Department of Corrections, as young men and women who have paid their debt to society or re-entering into their communities, making sure that they are able to participate in a viable way economically. Those are just a few of the examples.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I don't know if you know, but I'm on the state board for Michigan Works, and
Mhm.
it's that same old thing, and it's more of a mismatch of what is the trainability of a person
Yes.
versus what's their opportunities, and
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we're trying to do is, whether it's program 60 by 30, as you know, or futures for frontliners, opportunities to make sure that we create a state of lifelong learners.
Mhm.
And what we have to do is make it easier for Michiganders to say, I would like to have and access government services to allow me to retrain, but also for small and medium-sized businesses to know that these opportunities exist. So that's part of my responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, you guys do a great job of getting the money in the spot it can do the most good.
Well, I appreciate that. We
No,
we have a whole team. We're working hard. We're trying to get better at it. Um, and we need to make sure that and I hope your viewers and listeners understand this, that we view ourselves as stewards of taxpayer dollars because that is what we're doing. We're trying to make reinvestments that are going to yield positive outcomes for Michiganders.
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And this goes to the international stage too, because even though it's a Michigan organization, we need other countries and we need that trade. And I look at our ag, I look at our tourism, I look
Hmm.
at all those service industry. They're all about global economies.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, Michigan has always been an international state. I mean, we have three border crossings with Canada. In fact, the most active one
Yep.
um, that we have. We also have tremendous trade with countries in Asia, whether it be Japan or South Korea, uh, our friends in Taiwan, uh, and other places. Great European trade, whether it's with the UK or Germany or France or even new countries like Sweden and Norway. And so we are always thinking about how do we take the Michigan message on the road.
Yeah. So tell me about that message and where you're taking it and things like that, because you do a fair amount of travel. I have a heck of a time pinning you down. I'm glad I'm not your mom.
I'm just avoiding you. No, I'm just kidding.
I can.
No, no, absolutely not. No, the great thing is that we have a governor and other leaders who are willing to go across the world and take the Making in Michigan message, focus on people, places, and projects. We have to attract and develop people. We have to cultivate and revitalize places, and they have to compete for and win projects. So, last year we went to uh, Japan and Taiwan and France and Germany, among Norway and Switzerland. This year, we're headed to at some point later this summer to the UK. We're always go to Select USA, which is the largest opportunity for foreign direct investment. Earlier this year, we went to South Korea and Taiwan. The governor led that mission. So it's always an opportunity for us to tell the rest of the world who we are,
Yes.
because I think Michiganders are humble, but we have a tremendous message. And you talked about agribusiness, you talked about life sciences, we talked about small business. Yes, we put the world on wheels. We've done so much more, and we need to make sure that message continues to get told
Too many of us
across the
live
world.
too close to this forest to see how beautiful it is. And it is one of the outstanding states.
Yeah.
Partner, I appreciate your time and what you're doing, and thanks for stopping down here.
Always a pleasure. Anytime. Thank you, my friend.
Quentin Messers, head of MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And you are watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. We're coming to you from the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman. And we have our studios at the Grand Hotel today. And what a great place to be. This is where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce has their annual policy conference. And speaking of policy, here we go. You're up here doing some Steve Rapundolo, Dr. Steve Rapundolo, who is the head of Mish Bio. You're up here, I would think, doing some advocacy work.
Are indeed talking to politicians both at the state and the federal level because
Yeah.
there's a lot going on that, is impacting our industry. So we're
Well,
busy.
yeah, and it's interesting because when you talk about advocacy, you're talking about, yeah, is there more money available? Are there, but also legislation. What's happening with legislation, right?
Well, and more so in that regard,
Yeah,
quite frankly. It's not about the actual money available or a pot of money. It's about, is there money going to be available in some form or another that is meant to support an industry, businesses big and small. So yeah, these pieces of
so
legislation, a lot of them, as you know, can have unintended consequences. And so we're here to educate them on what those could be
yeah.
and make sure that they avoid those mistakes.
Well, and this is the point. A lot of legislation is made without the people who can see those unforeseen consequences. And you're right. Your responsibility is to be at that meeting when they start putting this stuff together.
Indeed.
So let's talk a little bit about your constituency, basically, your membership.
Sure.
What do you cover?
Yeah, so MISH-Bio, the Michigan Biosciences Industry Association, is the statewide organization that represents the interests of everything in the pharmaceuticals, the medical devices, the agricultural industrial biotech, meaning think renewable chemicals, renewable fuels, food nutrition products. It's all of the health tech, so think wearables, telehealth, digital health, informatics, like genomics
Yeah.
type, right? And it includes all the research, academic, clinical, and all the testing, right? Medical, analytical, environmental. So it's a big industry, and where everybody from the big multinational companies like Pfizer and Stryker, Perrigo, down to the one, two-person startups that are innovating the next generation of
New
technologies.
product or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. So how many of those do you see? Because you've got a fair amount of your membership that is R&D. How much do you see in the way of like tech transfer, with their end result being, I want to have a
Oh,
company?
quite a bit. I'd say about two-thirds to three-quarters of the industry in Michigan is really small companies, 50 employees or less.
Yeah.
And most of those are innovating, are in R&D.
Yeah.
Many of them don't have products in the market. They're not making profits, you know. So no, we're heavily tilted towards R&D.
Is there enough R&D money subsidy there? Because I see a lot of these companies, and I hate to think that any of them that might have a good business, a good product, not getting there simply because they weren't supported in
Well,
between.
I think this is where Michigan has lagged. Uh, One of our number one priorities for the last 15 years is to reestablish the research and development tax credit
Ah,
and ensure that whatever pot of money is dedicated to that, that there be a sub, piece of it exclusively for small companies,
yeah,
those in the R&D, like I talked about,
like a
right?
set aside, say under a certain.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And so we are this close to getting that over the finish line. It's going to be 15% tax credit, which is fairly competitive with other states. And in addition, if you do any of your R&D subcontracting with a research university here in the state, you can get an additional 5%.
Oh,
So we've tried to incentivize people to do their R&D here in any shape, way, or form and get an incentive back, on that and keep those jobs here.
well, and you got the URC, the
Hmm.
research colleges. You've got a pretty good, I would say, outcoming of tech transfer from
Oh, absolutely. I
those.
mean, Michigan, University of Michigan, Michigan State, Wayne State, um, they're powerhouses in terms of the substrate coming out that is there for company formation and commercialization. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the bigger thing that really is needed is a cohesive vision that everybody, public, private sectors, are in on and committed for the long haul, and that we cycle over cycle we stick to in its execution. So, meaning, I mentioned the strat plan from 8 years ago that we issued. Well, we're announcing today that we are going to be updating that plan. And we've just pulled together a steering committee with stakeholders from around the state, including the universities.
What's the big announcement?
Yeah,
It is.
it is. It is.
No,
Um,
reporting.
well, quite frankly, I would suspect that much of what is in the plan from 8 years ago is still valid today.
Oh, sure.
But we need to do our due diligence and go around the state talking to folks of all kinds and ask them what their priorities are and what the state should be doing. But again, it boils down to then distilling that into a plan that's actionable
Yeah.
and that's followed through on for the long term and not for the here and now, is which is a lot. Well,
Well, that's what you do. That's what you're supposed to do. Come on.
indeed. Well, I'm not getting any younger, so
Well, no, I can relate to that. Dr. Steve Rapundle, it is always good to see you, my friend.
indeed,
It
pleasure,
is.
sir.
You do a great job.
Thank you.
CEO of MishBio. And again, we are coming to you, the Michigan Business Beat and the Michigan Business Network, from the Grand Hotel where we are attending the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. I'm Chris Holman, and we'll be back with more. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman, and we are coming to you from the Grand Hotel because this is where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce puts on their policy conference every year. And so we're talking policy with a lot of people. And right now, Jody Radke joins us. Jody, you are I want to make sure I get the coalition, regional director for the campaign to keep Michigan kids tobacco free coalition.
Kind of.
Okay. Okay.
So I wear two hats. I'm the regional director with the Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids, and then I'm co-chair of the Keep Michigan Kids Tobacco Free Alliance.
There you go. Okay.
So you're close.
So you have your organization and then you have a bunch of others that joined in
Yes,
with you to give you the firepower on Capitol Hill. Of course.
exactly.
Yeah, there you
Yes.
go. Which accounts for your being here. Tell us a little bit about your tobacco free.
So, and the work we're doing here in state.
Yes.
So the work we're doing here in state is a bill policy package comprised of 8 bills. So not a small lift. 5 major policy pieces that we're looking to change here in state that would keep kids from starting use of tobacco and make sure that our adults who are using in the state of Michigan have access to resources to quit if they choose to quit.
All right. So would this be like curbing the way tobacco companies can market themselves? Would that have anything to do with it?
Not marketing. So
Okay.
the 5 major bill policy pieces, the first one is that part of this bill package includes requiring tobacco or retailers who are selling tobacco that they be licensed. Currently, Michigan's only one of 9 states that doesn't require retailers to be licensed to sell the product. So unlike recreational marijuana and alcohol, Michigan has no requirements. What we see in this case is in the city of Detroit, for example, about 60% of retailers are selling directly to kids. So we want that to change.
Oh.
Ending the sale of flavored tobacco products. So we have 15,000 flavors that are on the market currently. We know it's a catalyst for use amongst kids. So we want to remove the products from the market that kids are using and allow the products that adults are using to remain on the market. So ending the sale of flavored tobacco products. Increasing the price of tobacco. Vaping products currently aren't taxed in the state of Michigan, so we want to make sure those are taxed. Increase the price on other tobacco products. Remove criminal penalties on kids for purchase, use, or possession of tobacco, and then make sure our cities and counties have the tools in their toolbox to work on local policy change. And currently, Michigan is one of the most restrictive states in the country that don't allow our cities and counties to do the work they need to do.
So a couple of things. The flavored that's what I was talking about with Mark.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
they open the youth market.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they make something attractive to them.
Yes.
Or paint it red, and then people will go, oh,
Yes.
you know. The punitive piece of it, removing the legal penalties
Yes.
for minor possession. I'm presuming that's based on the fact that you shouldn't hold minors as accountable.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Yeah. Currently in the state of Michigan, if a youth, someone under the age of 21, per the legal sales age, is found to attempt to purchase the product, if they're using the product or simply possessing the product, they can be cited for that and they can enter into the criminal justice system with penalties that build a record for them, while the adult retailers who are selling directly to kids go unaccounted for.
Well, and that's a little like the people we have that are spending 20 years over marijuana possession that they
Yes.
were
Yes.
convicted of in the 80s, you know.
Yep. Yes.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the coalition you built now. Who all is in that?
So currently, the Alliance is comprised of about 130 organizations across the state. So it includes school based systems and associations, public health groups, it includes our healthcare systems. It's comprised of a lot of organizations and associations, but it's statewide representation.
So that helps you to have a bigger voice and swing a little bigger axe.
We hope so. We
Yeah.
hope so. It's quite a groundswell of people that support this package and really, I think, reflects the polling. We did polling last year on this issue to see what Michigan voters felt about the work that we're doing here in state. And I think it's a mirrored reflection of what we saw in the poll.
Okay, so you figure you've got the general population behind you.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're probably right about that.
We hope so.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about where it goes from here. And knowing a little bit about the legislative process, it's an election year,
Yes.
and so it's not going to happen tomorrow.
Correct.
It's going to take a little while. How do you feel you're moving along that? Let's get this to a vote.
I think we feel a sense of urgency, knowing exactly what you explained. But we feel, I think, confident that we can do this before the close of this year, by the time session ends.
Wow.
Our hope is to get it through its chamber of origin, which is the Senate, before they break for summer. So we're hoping to have a hearing. That's our priority, is to have a hearing on the bill package before they adjourn for summer break.
So the other piece of this will be enforcement because that's
Yes,
always like, well, we put the rules in, but it's going to be expensive
right.
to enforce it, right?
Exactly.
All right. How does that happen? Have you made allowance for that, or
We have.
is that their problem?
Nope. We want no unfunded mandates.
There-
So with tobacco retail licensure, there's a fee built in, similar to alcohol, similar to recreational marijuana, where retailers would have to pay a fee for their license in order to be able to sell. And the intent with that is that the fee is high enough or substantial enough to account for the enforcement costs that would come with it. But with the increase in tobacco prices, which is part of the bill package, there is conversation around offsetting some of that with those dollars if that's necessary.
Okay, so drive the price up and that fund
Correct. Potentially,
the
if
surveillance.
needed, if yes,
Yeah,
if the fee isn't high enough. Correct.
gotcha. And you got the educators behind you.
We do.
Okay, that's a really important one because that's the first line of communication to the kids buying.
Yes, and they're the first that are they're experiencing this front line and and center, and they're absorbing a lot of the costs on the back end. We've had some schools across the state cite that they had to close for a day, 2 days because kids were flushing devices down the toilet and it clogged the
And it
septic
clogs it
system.
up.
Yeah, or they're taking off bathroom stall doors because they don't want kids in the bathroom vaping, and they're trying to monitor that. So there's a lot
The
of
irony
costs.
of all that is that it does belong in the tool.
Well,
All right. So thanks for being with us. We appreciate
you're welcome,
Judy Racky, Jody, I'm sorry,
Jody.
who is the regional director for the campaign to keep
Yeah,
kids tobacco free.
close.
Give me the root.
Regional director with the Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids, and then co-chair of the Keep Michigan Kids Tobacco Free Alliance.
And she got them right. Okay. Thanks for being with us,
Of
Jody. We
course, you're welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Godspeed in your
Uh-huh,
mission.
thanks.
Thank you also very much for being with us on the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. We're coming to you from the Grand Hotel, where the Detroit Chamber of Commerce has their annual policy conference. I'm Chris Holman, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, coming to you from the Grand Hotel. And we are here for the Detroit Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. And of course, we have one of the presidents of PNC Bank. PNC, is it middle
Mid-Michigan.
mid-Michigan?
Mid-Michigan. Yep.
PNC Bank President Tim Salisbury, who incidentally we might call attention, is on our board of famous people that we have interviewed.
And I don't think I've gotten any payments for that.
Yeah,
Did I sign a release?
I think there's some royalty checks coming your way.
Let's
I'm not
hope so.
sure. How's banking?
You know, it's pretty good, Chris.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly, really, right? That the small businesses and the consumers continue to defy what all the economists had said was going to slow down, and it's just not happening.
Well, and unfortunately, what we really need is the prime rate to go down a little bit, and all the indicators that they bet on are staying up.
Higher for longer.
I
Yep.
know, I know.
Yep.
So I sit on an advisory council for the feds, and they've changed their course a little bit because they had mentioned they were going to drop maybe a couple of points
Well,
this summer.
Beginning of the year, right? I think we had
Yeah.
six drops in the forecast for 2024.
Yeah.
And right now, PNC still has two in there in
Yeah.
our forecast,
Okay.
September and December, but we'll see, right?
Two more to go. Yeah, I got you.
Need more data, but continues to be very low unemployment, and you know,
Well,
inflation's still sticky, down but sticky.
they are rigid on that inflation rate.
Right.
I mean, that's just their barometer. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that works out. Business demand, how's that?
I think the business owners have kind of adapted maybe to the new environment. Well, higher rates and actually seeing maybe more CapEx requests than we had a year ago.
Oh, okay.
So again, I think people have kind of decided, you know, we need to add that equipment. We've got to, add to the plant. We're going to seeing a little bit more robust activity like that, at least in mid-Michigan.
Well, it's kind of interesting that I think a lot of them are looking at that and going, I don't see the changing quickly.
Right. The
So
world we're in.
we've still
Right.
got to keep pace, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you let that go too long, it's hard to catch back up.
No,
You need to replace your equipment, kind of keep on a schedule.
and train your people. That is another big thing we found with our Michigan Future Business Index is people love to be trained, and they'll go with an employer or stay with an employer over exactly
I
that.
mean, you talk talent, right? I mean, ask
Right.
every business owner I run into, are you having an easier time or still a hard time getting the talent? It's gotten a little better for them, right? It feels like it's a little more balanced supply and demand of talent, but you always need more and you always need to develop them and retain them.
3 years ago, it went from we're not even getting bodies applying
Right.
to then they were getting bodies, but not qualified bodies. Now they're getting qualified people that are calling in.
There's still too many of those that, you bring six in and three last and three don't. But
That's
but
exactly.
again, it's better,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think we'll keep making progress there, hopefully.
So what are you guys doing in your industry in general to ensure that next generation of bankers? Anything?
We hire a lot of associates every year out of our colleges across the country, bring them into our development program, and probably upwards of 400 to 500 a year.
And you
And
have a development program.
we do,
Pretty
we
extensive.
absolutely do. We right in home base, Michigan State. We always get a couple every year out of Michigan State, put them into the program, which I love because that's future talent to come back into mid Michigan down
Right.
the road, right?
Right. Keep them here.
So
Well, and also your internship becomes kind of a part of that
the
too, does it not?
internships are usually a feeder system to get
Mhm.
into the development program. Someone comes in, they have a good experience, they like what PNC is doing, we like their approach, their attitude, and skill set they can bring to us, and absolutely
So there are three of you presidents in the state of Michigan, right?
correct.
East side, west side,
And we're all on the island.
and you're all up here.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
So tell me how it's going. Are the markets different, markedly different in those three?
There are uniquenesses. I mean, there's uniquenesses even inside of my mid-Michigan region,
Well,
right? I'm covering Saginaw, Bay City, Midland, Mount Pleasant, Lansing, Jackson, Livingston County. You kind of go, and there's different pockets, right? Of more auto versus less auto and more
Mhm.
service economy and types of things. So if you look Southeast Michigan or West Michigan, you get a different mix of manufacturing and in tech and healthcare. We've got insurance in mid Michigan, and they don't have so much of that in some of the others. spots, but all are doing relatively well. And PNC continues to grow and invest. You know, we're coast to coast now and want to get bigger
Yeah.
and continue to do more things in more communities.
Well, and you guys do a lot of research. I know for many years, and we still have him on periodically, Kurt Rankin,
Oh yeah,
your economist, one of your economists. You do a lot of research in that regard. I suspect they are the ones who found out that it looked like two more possible
yes,
bumps. Yeah, down.
yep. So we'll commend them if they're right, and we'll blame them if they're
And
wrong,
we'll
right?
replace them. If they're-
All I know from 30 plus years of doing this, it seems like they wait too long to start raising and they wait too long to start dropping.
well,
You know, that lag in the data is there every time,
that's
right?
probably true.
And then it's scrambled to catch up.
It goes back to that human nature. If I don't do anything, I haven't made a mistake.
That's right. That's me in my golf game.
Which,
If I don't hit a shot, it's perfect. Unlike
which,
unlike you
which,
like to gamble.
yeah, I
You
don't
take the
care.
shot, see
I
what
don't.
happens.
I got a lot of balls. I get them every Christmas. Tim Salisbury, who's the Mid Michigan president for PNC Bank. Thanks for being with us. Always good to see you, buddy.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, we love working with you guys.
Enjoy your rest of the time on the island, Chris.
It's a great conference. It really is. And that's where we're coming to you from, the Grand Hotel. We are here for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, coming to you from the island. That's right, Mackinac Island, where we are attending the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. And we have with us here, and thanks for joining us, by the way, Elizabeth Bernard. She's the executive director of the Manufacturing Growth Alliance. Let's tell everybody what that is.
Absolutely. So thanks so much for having me on your show. Executive Director, as you said, Manufacturing Growth Alliance, or MGA. MGA is a statewide trade association dedicated to the unique needs of Michigan's small to medium-sized manufacturers.
Okay, so let's talk about unique.
Unique, yes. So our small to medium-sized manufacturers are very different to our large manufacturers. Our large manufacturers in the state get a lot of attention, a lot of investment. And so MGA is here to advocate for increased services and support and investment in our small to medium-sized manufacturers. They need help with growth. They need help with talent. They need help with succession planning. They need help with operational efficiencies. They need help with Industry 4.0. And so that's where MGA comes in.
Okay, so speaking of industry, manufacturing 4.0, Mr. Kelly will be on in the next few days from
Nice.
Automation Alley. Yeah, he actually is. Okay, so it sounds to me like, as a business guy, okay, give them money, right? They take care of those problems, but that's not always the solution.
No, that is not, that is part of the solution, but it's not the only solution. When it comes to technology adoption, the money is a big incentive, but they need education about why they need to be looking at Industry 4.0 technologies or other things, whether it's succession planning or diversifying their workforce. They really need education and they need a little bit of hand holding sometimes. And oftentimes we've seen some companies who want to make big changes, but they're so capacity constrained as a small to medium sized manufacturer that despite the desire to change, they don't have the internal capacity to make those changes. And that's where MGA comes in as a supportive partner to help them find the resources that they need to implement the changes they're looking to pursue.
So how's MGA funded?
We are funded in large part currently by the MEDC. They've been a supporter of MGA through the Industry 4.0 grants. We also have corporate sponsors, and of course, we have membership partnerships. And we have a lot of strategic partners who sign on to support MGA because they themselves have an interest in supporting small to medium sized manufacturers.
Well, it's interesting. I always ask that question because
Yes.
if you're the CEO of something like that, your time gets split sometimes too much in going and getting out money instead of doing good.
Yes, yes. And so, it's as MGA, we are a trade association. We are a membership-based organization. And so we encourage small to medium-sized manufacturers, CEOs in particular, to become a member of MGA so that they can gain access to the network that we bring to them. Because without connecting with the resources around the state, they will be left behind.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about you being in manufacturing.
Right.
But when you first started getting involved, it was.
It sure was. And
What's that story?
well, it's a great story. At least I think it is.
I think it's a great story.
Thank you. So I vowed when I was a young girl I would never get involved with manufacturing or the trades for that matter. And the reason being is that my father, he was back in the day what we call a shop teacher. He taught middle and high school students in the industrial arts how to weld, machining. My father is a fantastic machinist. He's an engineer by heart. And I knew I never, ever wanted to be in a lab like my father's shop. I can still to the day remember walking into his shop and there's a certain smell that I can still detect in some of the manufacturers I visit. But it and back then manufacturing was dirty.
Yeah,
It was greasy,
I was going to say that's
gray,
big
and I didn't want
difference.
any part of that. But manufacturing today, it's beautiful, it's sexy even.
Yeah.
With the automation that's happening, the innovation that's happening in manufacturing is so exciting, which is why I'm a part of it.
Yeah, excellent stuff. And you do a little broadcasting for us, as a matter
I
of fact,
do.
along those lines. Talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I love being a host on your show, the Build Smart, Lead Strong podcast, where we bring solutions and questions to our manufacturers and things to consider that they're not thinking about. That's
Well, you do a great job and a little bit of storytelling that goes on there, which is important. I've never undervalued storytelling. It is really important.
it's the most important thing. People pay attention to stories before they pay attention to numbers sometimes.
No, you're absolutely right. All right, where do you go from here? Now you're up here.
I'm up here.
So what are you doing up here?
Well, I have a lot of great meetings with my partners all across the state. You mentioned Tom Kelly, Automation Alley. Here, of course, to connect with the Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center, Centropolis Accelerator, and of course the MEDC and our Leo partners.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And of course, some happy hours here and there.
Well, exclusive of the happy hours, which all make us all happy. So Quentin was just on not long ago, and we were talking about how they disperse money properly. So, where would you go and get more money? Because my guess is, like most nonprofit type things, you always outstrip your capital.
We do indeed. And we are a nonprofit. And of course, one of the biggest challenges for all nonprofits is the funding. And MGA certainly has a need for increased funding, whether that is through the state, whether that's through corporate sponsorships who believe in what we're doing. But also, I think the most important thing is that we need to remember that our small to medium sized manufacturers need support and they need partners like MGA to give them that support.
Well, Elizabeth Bernard, not only Executive Director of Manufacturing Growth Alliance, but not only for what you do there, but certainly we welcome you and hope you have a long career here
Thank you.
at the Michigan Business Network. All right. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network, which is coming to you from the Grand Hotel. We're here for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. I'm Chris Holman, and we'll be back with more. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, and we are coming to you from Mackinac Island, where we are in the great Grand Hotel, because this is where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce has their annual policy conference. And right in the middle of all those discussions, as a matter of fact, is the MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And you are Senior Vice President, Amy Rencher. And you are specifically kind of dedicated to small business, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it's great to have you here. And by the way, thanks for your participation at the Michigan Small Business. And thanks for coming on stage and sharing the spotlight a little bit. Gives people a break from me. But you guys have been instrumental in helping business throughout the state of Michigan, and you in particular, small businesses. So what's the latest? You had an announcement that was big enough you could have made it up here, as a matter of fact.
That's right, Chris. And before we go further, we want to thank and acknowledge you for your hard work with regards to Michigan Celebrates Small Business. 20 years at the helm and really the face of this wonderful event we do each year to celebrate small businesses. So thank you. You are appreciated, and really a poster child for small business for the state, if I may say so.
Aren't you kind? And it's nice to be called the poster child. Did everybody get that?
I gotta butter you up here, Chris. No, so you mentioned our big announcement, and thank you very much for bringing it up. So just before we came up here on the island, we announced $8.8 million in grants to small and medium-sized businesses across the state through the Inclusive Entrepreneurship Support Grant. And this is through the tremendous leadership of Senator Anthony, who put this into this year's state budget, and we were able to administer that on behalf of her great leadership. So many thanks for her vision there. And so this enabled us to make strategic investments in small businesses across the state in strategic sectors, led by diverse individuals. And so everything, investments for everything into clean energy, mobility, advanced manufacturing, AI, biotherapeutics. I mean, these are cutting edge technologies, homegrown here in the state, with entrepreneurs, many diverse led entrepreneurs and really geographies all across the state. So it was such a pleasure and immense opportunity to really do the showcase of innovation. I'm sure we'll do more awareness around these awesome companies, but just a tremendous opportunity to really double down on our commitment to small business, to entrepreneurship writ large, right? To showcase Michigan as a place for innovation, for years to come.
Well, and this is a little like tech transfer, et cetera. And sometimes it's incredible that products and services that are developed at this stage and can't get their hands on the money to move forward, those products and services never wind up on our shelves.
That's right. And so this is, I mentioned those kind of strategic sectors and how important the investments are early on. We also do great work. You mentioned tech transfer and ongoing work in partnership with our public universities. And so university spinoffs, commercializing the technology that students have started. It's another way we can double and sort of triple down on this culture of innovation here in the state.
Yeah, and there is a culture of innovation, by golly. And there wasn't one not all that long ago. We were all into recruiting factories here and then trying to fill them with people. And now we're paying a whole lot of attention to what we used to call economic gardening.
Yes, and that's so important, right? The holistic experience of the entrepreneur. There's a great panel here with my colleague Hillary Doe earlier today, and we talked about the importance of place in this, right? We want a thriving community, we want a culturally vibrant community. We want a place where our kids can run around the park, we can get a coffee up the street. This all contributes to supporting our state's drive for talent and bringing new talent on the state and retaining the great talent we have from our public universities. So place is important, and small businesses are an important part of cultivating that place, that economic gardening you spoke
You
about.
know, it's so interesting. It's not just the youth that needs those things. It's the aged, because we find out, I'm the past president of AARP Michigan. I didn't know if you knew that. But we found out that a lot of their needs and where they wanted to grow old were the same as young people's needs. They want to be around other people. They want walkable. They want entertainments. They don't want to sit and watch daytime TV.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Yeah. And that's so, we often, I will say in my role, I often think about the urban rural dichotomy, right? The shared obstacles and opportunities in urban and rural communities. But I really appreciate looking at that point among like the importance of place and how it affects all generations, right? That's a wonderful insight.
Well, and it is culture building too. I think a lot of companies are paying much more attention to the culture they build so that people aren't coming to work to get a check. They're part of work and they've got some pride in that work, etc. That's part of like cultural placemaking as well.
Yeah, and that's an opportunity for us when we think about future investments into small businesses from the state's purview, right? When we think about good jobs, what does a good job mean? Some of that is equipping small business owners with the tools and expertise they need to provide these culturally vibrant workplaces,
Yeah.
right? Good benefits, holistic supports of their staff, childcare, elder care, right? That's a whole other area for opportunity and investment in the state. But it's important, and we need to make sure that our employers, mostly small businesses, have the tools and resources and knowledge they need to be supportive of that kind of a culture.
Yeah, there's so many other things that go into the mix nowadays, and people also want a balanced life, which is important. All right. Amy Rancher, thanks so much for coming with us, Senior Vice President at MEDC, dedicated to small business, I might say. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you, Chris.
You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. We are coming to you from, well, the Grand Hotel. Where would you rather be, right? This is where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce has their annual policy conference, and we're here for you. I'm Chris Holman. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, and we're coming to you from the Grand Hotel because that's where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce has their annual policy conference. And when you talk about policy, you talk about the shooters in business, right? So we try to get them on, and I guess we could say we achieved that with you, right?
I appreciate that.
David, it's good to have you on. David Lewis is the president of AT&T, and always good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
What's new? What's new?
I tell you what, at AT&T, it's an investment and it's fiber all day long. So what we're trying to make sure we do is bridge that digital divide. We want to be the connector of all Michiganders. So what we try to make sure is that we continue to invest in this state. For the last 5 years, we've invested over 2.4 billion in infrastructure, sustainability,
Billion,
advancement,
billion.
billion with a B. Did I say million? I
No,
apologize.
no, you
Billion.
said
I
billion.
did. Okay,
I
good.
just wanted to emphasize.
Exactly. Millions are rounding error based on what we're doing, right? So that 2.4 billion is making sure that we are connecting through our macro sites, through our small cell. We're also making sure that our fiber builds continue to move, not just in Southeast Michigan or Southwest, but throughout the entire state of Michigan, including the UP. So what's important for our investment is to make sure that we are connecting with counties and municipalities and making sure that we are exactly where we need to be. We can't we can't get fiber out fast enough, right? The take rate is really high and the customers are really excited about the connectivity that they're receiving. So we're really excited about that.
Well, and I want to say thank you on behalf of the small business community. There are so many communities without fiber and without that connection who are just almost excluded out of what's going on in the state.
That's exactly right. And we have to identify that. That's an excellent point. We're going after B dollars that are federal subsidy monies. That's also $1.5 billion that's coming in from federal government. The way that works is through the My High office, and they do a great job in managing this, is making sure that we're being educated on when these rounds of funds are going to be available. We're going to go after those dollars because what that means is if I'm able to get subsidy in addition to the current investment that we're making and the future investment that allows me to deploy more, to get out there faster, and to increase the build throughout the state. So as we look for these federal subsidy dollars, it's very important that we make sure that we are exactly where we need to be. So we're hoping that when these dollars come out, we're going to be competitive. We're going to receive the funds that's necessary, attach it to our own investment, and we're looking at larger numbers this time next year when we're going to talk about what we're doing in the state of Michigan.
Okay, so that's part of what you're doing up here for
Yes.
this weekend, right? Talking to legislators and seeing what can be put where.
Absolutely right. And when we talk to businesses, we talk to residents, but we also talk about first responders.
Yeah.
Our FirstNet network, built by AT&T, is extremely important to make sure that our first responders receive the necessary uh, uh, necessities and equipment and SIM cards and macro site technology and Band 14 modems and police cars. The Michigan State Police we work with and making sure that when they're in rural areas that they do have the connectivity to communicate. In areas where there's more aggregate, such as the NFL drafts, right? You have areas where there's just obviously almost a million people in one area. You have to make sure that everyone has that connectivity. But what's just as important is, God forbid, there be an incident that took place in that high of a volume area. We want our first responders to have priority and preemption in communicating in those areas. So what we try to do is provide our first responders with all the equipment. We just announced another $8 billion investment in our FirstNet network throughout the country to make sure that we continue to build and move our first responders, because if they're protected, they're connected, more people are saved, more lives are saved, and that's what it's all about.
You keep using that B word. It's almost scary for me. I
Yes.
can't fathom what.
You and I both as
That's pretty big.
individuals, but
Pretty
that,
big
but you
money.
know what? It's a great point because that's what it takes.
Yeah.
You have to invest in areas where, our Michiganders live, work, raise their families.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we have to continue to sustain that. And that's why I appreciate this administration. I appreciate this legislature for allowing us to have the freedom of investing in areas to make sure that we can invest that type of capital expenditure.
So I want to tell you something that I was on Gretchen's first kitchen cabinet,
Hmm.
and she said, "What can I do for small business?" And at the top of the list of 5 things was get broadband to the far reach communities. And there will be a return on that investment because it takes a while for them to grow. But it's expensive to go in and do that.
It's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the monies that I'm mentioning is not something that we're doing because we have it. It's doing because we have to. right? It's not a privilege, it's a necessity. And we know small businesses continue to grow. They're the backbone of our economy. You know that better than anybody. And in order to do that, these small businesses have to have the connectivity that's necessary from a Wi-Fi and a fiber broadband perspective. So we want to make sure that we're providing them with all the tools that's necessary, but most importantly, the ubiquitous connectivity in order to do their job and to run their business. Because if they're successful, the economy in Michigan's successful, and then that helps us as well. So
Well, and so it should be, but it is helping a lot in that community, and you're bringing everybody kind of up to stuff. Not to mention what it's doing for telemed and things like that, so that older people who aren't as mobile
that's
can get in
exactly right.
touch with some
You know,
help.
we call it telemedicine. It's the speed of treatment,
Yeah.
right? A lot of the senior community can't drive or get to the hospitals. Sometimes they can't get to the doctor's offices. So there's a lot of online onboarding communication that needs to be taking place as far as consultation. As far as when do you take your medicine at what point in time? Well, if there's a smartwatch that you have, or there's a device that reminds you of that, then that's going to save lives.
Yeah.
You know, blood pressure medicine, the whole nine. So for you to have that, you've got to have connectivity in order to be able to receive that. If you have to have a consultation with your primary care physician, then you have to. Then we have to be able to make sure that you can do that.
David, the fact is, you guys are part of being the first responders. I mean, you really are. You get the communication out there where it should be. David Lewis, president of AT&T, and thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for everything you do.
Thanks for all that you do, and thanks for having me.
It's
Look forward to coming back.
good to spend time, buddy.
Thank you, my friend.
All right.
Thank you.
You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman coming to you from the Grand Hotel and the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. We'll be back with more. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here for the Michigan Business Beat, and we are on the island. That's exactly right, Mackinac. We are in the Grand Hotel because this is where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce has their annual policy conference. And who is more in the middle of all this than the Michigan Health and Hospital Association? Let's get it originally was the Michigan
It was the Michigan
Hospital Association.
Healthcare reform that we thought maybe we would be greater, there would be more to the story. And so they changed the name and it's never gone back.
But it's still MHS.
It's still MHA.
So I can remember that. Okay, so Laura Oppel, Senior Vice President, and we want to talk about something that off air I found pretty astounding
Hmm.
because one of our biggest challenges in all industries is talent. It's people.
Talent, absolutely. And MHA, on behalf of its members and our members, of course, which are all of the hospitals in Michigan, have been focused like a laser on retaining and growing workforce. And we did a survey of our members in 2023, and we repeated that survey in 2024. And what we found is in the last 12 months, our members have hired 60,000 people.
60,000.
An amazing statistic, 60,000 people.
Oh, where did they get? Is there some place manufacturing people?
Well, we've been trying like the Dickens. Our organization has a My Hospital Careers campaign that's online that we would love for people to visit. But we are looking for people wherever we can get them, and we have a career path for folks once they start working in the hospital. We have 19,000 more vacancies. So I would love for folks to reach out and take a look at what might be available online. Uh, we've reduced our number of nursing vacancies. I know this has been a very big concern among everyone, including our nurses. We don't have enough nurses. We reduced that vacancy rate by 44%. That was very good news. Hospitals employ about 217,000 people in this state. But I think, going back to the hiring, we are looking for, growing our population, growing our economy, making sure our economy is strong. And I just want people to understand, we really are part of that. 60,000 jobs, I think, tells you that.
Oh, a big part. And you are a growth industry. There's no doubt about that. So you have to be fed.
Well, we are, people are aging out, and so we need to replace folks, and we need different types of people inside the hospital. There's a job classification called patient care tech, and those folks do a lot of things to assist registered nurses, so that the nurses can work at the top of their license, and the patient care tech can take care of the other needs the patients have that are not necessarily clinical. So there are different job classifications that we're trying to fill, but we have, like I said, 19,000 vacancies. So despite hiring thousands and thousands of folks, we still need more, and we're working to develop that workforce. The legislature helped us a lot with some funding a few years ago to help us retain the workforce that we have, but we have a lot of work ahead of us as well.
Well, so you got halfway there actually with 19,000 and you need 20 more. Um, but let's talk a little bit about where these people are coming from. And I know you work closely with community colleges, the universities, et cetera, who turn these folks out.
Yeah, if I could make a plug for a program called Michigan Reconnect. Reconnect is available to anyone who's 21 years and older who hasn't completed a community college degree. You can also use that program for a certificate. So if you're thinking, wow, if I could get a little bit of training, maybe I could get a much better wage. You're absolutely right. You could become a lab technician, patient care, a person who prepares sterile instruments, a person who does phlebotomy. All of those things can be learned at the community college, and Reconnect will help you with that tuition. You have to go to community college for 2 years to get one, and those are well-paying jobs. And I promise you that folks want you to work for them in those roles.
All right. So I know that's not the only issue that you have. What would be second place?
Second place is probably uh, access to behavioral and mental health services. We still struggle with making sure that we have what folks need. Uh, we have a dearth of clinical placements, For example, um, we know of one person in the Upper Peninsula who's a child psychiatrist. One.
One.
We used to have zero.
That's a bit of a drive.
That's a bit of a drive for anybody, and we're not sure that that person actually practices. It could be that they maintain that license but are actually retired up there or something. I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying we can't promise you that. So, we desperately need more outpatient services. Psychiatry especially seems to be a challenge. But then, kids with special needs, well, anybody really, people that have both a developmental disability and a mental illness, it's really, really hard to get services for them. If you ever hear about people waiting in the ED, it's probably one of those special complex cases, and those are especially difficult to solve.
Well, I hadn't thought about it, but probably Simone Biles, as much as anybody, heightened that mental health aspect to it. So, yeah, there's a little bit of work to be done. Hey, Laura Oppels, thank you so much for being here.
Time. We appreciate being part of this, and we've had a great conference. And I just want to say one more time, hospitals are anchor institutions. The theme of this conference is bridging the future together, and we are absolutely a bridge to Michigan's workforce.
Well, so good to have you here, and give Brian and everybody back at the ranch our best, would you? Thanks so much. All right. We are going to be right back with more. I'm Chris Holman on the Michigan Business Beat, coming to you from the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce annual policy on Mackinac Island. Stay with us.